when you build a marketing engine for your business, what happens is you take advantage of the cheapest acquisition channel in the history of marketing and advertising, which is social media and content. In the absence of marketing, you have no customers. Like that, oh yeah, we build this great product, okay, great, it's awesome. And then, well, what do we do next? We have to go find some customers. There is no cheaper way to acquire customers than by building a substantial brand through these channels. That's marketing. My journey in marketing has been built out of necessity. There are only two functions in a business, and that is,
I think that you are probably one of maybe 3 to 5 people that have the best business design mind I've ever come across.
Well, no, my background is in software and product development, and but when you build any type of products, you've realized very quickly, which is in the absence of marketing, you have no customers. And probably one of the, so like you have, like it became self-apparent, right? Like that, oh yeah, we build this great product and, okay, great, it's awesome. And then, well, what do we do next? We have to go find some customers. So my journey in marketing has been built out of necessity. I think about one of the late great, probably I would say the patron saint of management is a guy by the name of Peter Drucker. Many of your people in your audience have probably read a Peter Drucker book, or at least they've heard principles of Peter Drucker. He said there are only two functions in a business: marketing and innovation. And that is essentially creating something of value and then communicating that value. Now, people who are listening go, well, Jimmy, what about HR? What about sales? What about customer service? Sure. Yes, those are necessities that need to exist. But in terms of the driving engine behind an organization, it's marketing and innovation. It's how are you improving the value you deliver to customers, and then how are you communicating that to the external world? And so I've had a passion for marketing because I like what marketing does, Glenda, which is marketing makes the cash register ring. And marketing gives you leverage, and marketing gets people to pay attention to you. And I think this is actually, for our audience who's going to be primarily real estate agents who's listening to this, the thing that's really interesting is that when you build a marketing engine for your business, and I'll give you an analogy here in a second, but when you build a marketing engine for your business, like you have with your business, and like people like Ken Pozak have had with their business, what happens is you take advantage of the cheapest acquisition channel in the history of marketing and advertising, which is social media and content. I mean, like there is no cheaper way to acquire customers than by building a substantial brand through these channels. That's marketing. Now, the benefit is you also have a great monetization model, which is when you sell real estate, you get paid a lot of money. When you build and develop JVs with mortgage and title, you can extend that relationship and generate more money. You could even hire people on your team that then also help you generate more money. And so there's this magic that happens when you build this, call it media empire, which is the cheapest customer acquisition model. But unlike media, which has a terrible business model, you apply a really good business model, which is a real estate business, real estate team, real estate brokerage. You bring those two worlds together and you've got magic. And I think this is what people, you and others who have done this so well, Glenda, as a marketer, I look at what you guys have built and I say to myself, in just admiration, I'm like, why doesn't everyone else see what is so obvious that this is the only thing they should be thinking about? And instead, what you find is agents kind of create a series of excuses or reasons why they can't do what you do. I'm not as charismatic as Glenda, right? I'm not as creative as Ken. Like as if these are real excuses why you shouldn't do this. I mean, what an incredible opportunity that we have in real estate to take the cheapest customer acquisition model in the history of marketing and advertising and append it to a great business model. I mean, like there are other industries or other businesses that are killed to have that opportunity, and we have it in real estate. And yet, Glenda, firsthand, 0.5% of agents and teams are really embracing this. One thing we talked about in the book is this idea of this framework for prospecting called opening fact question, OFQ. And the basic idea is just a way to structure a outreach to start a conversation. And I was a part of the largest listing attraction experiment in history. Just a quick sidebar here. In Q4 of last year, we got together with 2,300 agents to participate in a program called 100K in 100 days. We developed the plan, some strategies, some marketing strategies, some sales strategies. We helped those agents generate over $7.5 billion in closed listings in 100 days, literally within 100 days. And that was Q4 of 2023, which many would regard as probably the very bottom of, when we look back now, probably the very bottom of the housing market in terms of just the number of transactions. It was an awful quarter, and we absolutely lit the cash register up. And we did that by focusing on using very specific tactics for starting conversations. So one thing I would do if I was listening to this podcast is every time there's news in real estate, this is an opportunity to start a conversation. Glenda, I'm not using the same boring status quo script that everyone else is using. I am becoming the filter for my customers. And so I'll give you a really specific example. If I were to reach out to you today, Glenda, let's say you're in my database, you're in my SOI, I wanted to check in with you. I would say, hey, Glenda, I've been talking to a lot of my clients recently about the market. Since the Fed cut rates, we're seeing a pretty big uptick in activity. Out of curiosity, how has the recent drop in mortgage rates impacted your real estate plans this fall? That's it. And listen, I know a couple dorks who are going to listen to this podcast go, Jimmy, the Fed doesn't impact mortgage rates. They affect the Fed fund rate, which affects the 10-year treasury. I get all of that. But you know what the consumer sees every day? They see the fact that the Fed cuts rates and all of a sudden mortgage rates are going down. So they interpret it like, I understand the technicality here, okay, but we ain't gonna get bonus points by explaining how the Fed fund rate's tied to the treasury. Like let's just address the audience here. But it's like, hey, out of curiosity, how has the recent drop to mortgage rates impacted your real estate plans this fall? And this is not a yes or no question. This is a conversation starter. And that's the beauty of a script like this. So when I'm thinking about the news that's happening in real estate, I think of myself as this filter. I'm consuming news from every publication out there, CNBC. I'm following people on X. I'm using Perplexity AI. I'm using all these tools, and I see something that's interesting. I'm saying, you know what? That's probably worth talking to some people about. Like I saw recently, Glenda, the number, this is Redfin put this data out, the number of mortgage lock-ins is up 68% month over month from August to September. Why does that matter? It matters because the mortgage lock-ins is a forward-looking indicator of transactions, meaning that like if that number is dropping, then transactions is going to drop. If that number is rising, then transactions are going to rise. So I'm always using, like, if I'm a real estate agent listening to this podcast, I'm saying, I got to prioritize revenue, like Glenn and I've been talking about. I got to really kind of condition myself to be excited to be talking to people. And the way to solve that problem is get really good at starting conversations. Well, the way to get really good at starting conversations is to study what's happening in the market and use that as a means to say, yeah, let's talk. Let's have a conversation. And what we learned from that program I mentioned, 100K in 100 days, is that 11 real estate conversations equals one listing. So if you talk to 11 serious conversations about selling your house, right, one of those are going to transact. So instead of taking this really big thing, like let's say, Glenda, people who are watching this podcast have a goal of getting $250,000 in GCI in 2025. Right? Which is a fantastic living. Let's say you want to get that number. Okay, well, maybe that's 35 transactions. Okay, that feels intimidating if you've done 3, right? Like last year. Okay, well, 35, that's kind of about 3 per month. Let's give ourselves a little bit of room there. Okay, 3 per month. Well, that means I got to be talking to 30 plus people per month, which means I got to be really probably talking about 1 to 2 unique people per day. Now, all of a sudden, that really difficult big number that's scary, 30 plus transactions, becomes only a handful of conversations per day. And the reality is that if we look back at our calendars, so few of us are having those conversations. So we got to just design our entire day around that if we want to get to the kind of the end goal we want to get to.